Do fairies cause autism? Now, I like to think that we're all within living memory of a time when if somebody opened a video with that statement, you would think, no, they're not being serious. But these are strange times, friends, so I'm going to say right from the outset, no, they don't. But yesterday, I posted a video of various things that people throughout history have thought might have caused autism. And fairies was on that list, and lots of people in the comments went, oh, I like that one, let's go with that one, it's fairies. So I thought I'd do a little follow-up video to explain to you what that link between fairies and autism actually is. And although fairies sound like a lot of fun, I should also tell you that this is a dark and troubling history, and you might just not want to listen to that today. You might just want to scroll and find a nice video about somebody baking potatoes, in which case, get out now. So the first thing that you need to know is that belief in fairies is ancient and widespread across Europe. It still persists to this very day. There are people that believe absolutely in the power of the fairies, and people that just hedge their bets. For example, I have family over in the Isle of Man, and there's a fairy bridge, and every time you drive over it, you have to say, Faster my Munga Vega, which is Manx for hello little people. When I was in Iceland filming last week, one of the ladies in the restaurant said that we had to thank the fairies of the forest if everything went well, and we all went, ha ha ha, okay, but you bet your bottom dollar we all fucking thank the fairies just in case. But in times gone past, belief in fairies was persistent, widespread, and very, very entrenched. And they weren't talking about these kind of fairies. The cute Disney fairies. No, fairies were unseen spirits that could cause a lot of mischief. They could do good things if they wanted to, or they could really mess stuff up. They would do whatever they wanted to do, and basically your job was not to get on the wrong side of them. And this leads to all kinds of beliefs and superstitions and customs for keeping the fairies on side, or for keeping them away if they were going to be naughty. And there was also this widespread belief that fairies wanted to steal human children. That crops up all over the place. It's in Britain, it's in Ireland, it's in Germany, it's in France, it's in Poland, it's in Russia. Fairies wanted to steal human children. Reasons for this varied, for things like the fairies just liked them, through to human children were so beautiful they just wanted to take them. But the fairies wouldn't just steal a child, they would replace the child with one of their own, and that would be a fairy changeling. And the changeling child would look exactly like the human child, but be very, very different. They might cry all the time. They might want to eat all of the time. They might suddenly stop talking or have other behaviour that just marked them out as very different from they had been before. And if a child, or an adult in some cases, started to exhibit marked differences in their behaviour, that could mean that they had been swapped for a fairy. And you can see how this could map on to what we'd now call autism spectrum disorder, especially autism with regression, which is where a child develops typically and then suddenly or gradually starts to regress. And it's been suggested by certain scholars and historians that the fairy changeling children were actually children with autism spectrum disorder. And no doubt other numerous disabilities. And here's where this story gets particularly dark. If your child had been changed for a fairy child, you had to get rid of it. You had to get your own child back. And there are numerous recorded ways of doing this. One of the more harmless is to start cooking in an eggshell, which would be so ridiculous to the fairy that it would suddenly go, oh, that's really stupid. And then it would be like, oh God, I've given myself away. And then they'd have to bring the other child back. But a much darker belief is that the fairy could be driven out by fire or by water. Martin Luther, the German priest, believed in fairy changeling children, and this is what he recommended when he found a fairy changeling child. Pause and read it at your leisure, but basically what he's saying is you want to take the changeling to the river and drown it. In the early 19th century, the Grimm brothers collected all kinds of folkloric stories from across Europe, and their work contains numerous references to fairy changeling children. Again, pause and read this one at your own leisure, but quite terrifyingly here, the story ends with the child being brought to the fire to frighten the fairy out. Behind me is an account from 1731 written by George Waldron, who lived on the Isle of Man, and he met somebody that was supposed to be a fairy changeling child. Again, pause to read it at your own time. So you can start to see how widespread and persistent this belief was, but also how dangerous it was, because the solution to get your child back was usually to burn or to drown it, and we do have documented instances of that happening. This is a case from 1826 in Ireland where a young mother accidentally drowned her son because she was told to keep washing him in the river until the fairies gave him back. And then there was the 1895 case of Bridget Cleary in Ireland, whose husband basically burnt her to death because he genuinely believed, or at least allegedly genuinely believed, that the fairies had stolen his wife and he was trying to get the fairy out of her. And it is entirely possible that the fairy changeling children were actually just kids with autism spectrum disorder. And in a world without modern medicine or without the benefit of science, it just made sense to them that this baby must have been taken by the fairies, often with very, very tragic consequences. But the story of the fairy changeling children does offer us a fascinating insight into how disabilities were understood in the past. And it's still not caused by Tylenol.